Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. It is January, year 2023, and this is episode, I believe, 98. So December has come and gone, and we are in a new year. It has been about 5 weeks, I think, since I sat down to chat, and this is the first week of January. It has been a busy December, and as I had mentioned in the previous episode about the importance I find in unplugging, I did not make it back here on YouTube to record another episode, and I just let it go. So here I am, and in this new year, I don't make resolutions. I don't really make any specific goals either. I always make mini kind of arbitrary goals throughout the year, but nothing necessarily set for a whole year. I do usually pick a word as a theme for a year, and I don't always share it. There's just a lot that goes into the thinking process, and sometimes I just want to keep things to myself, and that's okay. Do you do anything special for the new year? Do you celebrate it a certain way? Do you have certain traditions? Do you pick a word? Let me know down below in the comments. It is very wintry outside. In fact, today we might get anywhere from 6 to 13 inches of snow, depending on how this winter storm or cold front kind of blows through. So we shall see how it goes. I'll be doing some shoveling later today, I'm sure. So I do have quite a bit to talk about today. I have a lot of finished projects, and I'm not going to share all of them because several were gifted, since the last time we talked. We do celebrate Christmas in our household, and I usually make a lot of the gifts that we either, are within our family unit here, but also out to cousins and nieces and nephews. Nephew, no S. But yes, I have lots of nieces, but one nephew. And yeah, I make a lot of things. I get them all sent out, and so I don't really have a lot to share with you there. I guess I have some of my pictures, but it would just be a lot, and I think it would be overwhelming. And yeah, they're kind of past, so I'm just going to kind of move forward, I think. I do have a couple on hand I think I can share with you that some of them are more recent, and so I'll share those. I don't know. We'll see how far this goes because it's been about 5 weeks since I've been here on YouTube, and whenever I do these episodes, there's just a lot of talking, and I'm maybe even a little rusty. I feel like it's a muscle that you kind of have to keep exercising, and talking to oneself for an hour or so, plus or minus some, is kind of a lot to be talking. It's like this giant monologue. But yes, so I have lots of finished projects. We'll see which ones I get through. I do have several works in progress that I cast on, one I cast on Winter Solstice, and I finished that, so I'll share that one with you. I did cast, I think I have a Christmas or Christmas Eve cast on as well. I have a New Year's Eve cast on, I believe. Yeah, a New Year's Eve cast on. And another one, I don't know when I cast it on, but anyway, I do have several works in progress. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to share with you. A couple of books. 2 I've finished. Well, sorry, 1 I finished, but it's the second book of a duology, and another one that I'm currently reading and really into. So we'll see if I get into that. I hope you have a nice beverage or two to chat with me today, and maybe a project or two. I do put in chapters, like timestamps for the different sections, and that way it's easier, at least for me, to find things. Maybe you have things that you want to reference back to. It's also there in case you watch in segments throughout the day, throughout the week, however way works for you, and that way it's also easier to kind of jump around. I do include closed captioning for all of my videos, so you click on that CC button down below, and things that I talk about will have links in the description box below the video. Sometimes you have to click on show more, or there's like a little arrow thing. What else? I use Ravelry. So the projects all have Ravelry project pages, and those are specifically marked. And my videos are usually split up in sections. So in the beginning, you will have already watched a vlog. This time there's just little bits and pieces of December to share with you, and that's set to usually music, and sometimes there's text on the screen, but if you've already watched it, you already know. And then I break into like an intro, kind of a catch up, what's the weather like, that kind of stuff. In the summer there's garden updates, in the winter there's no garden. Then we usually jump into like a what I'm wearing or finished projects section, and then a works in progress section, and then an eats and reads section where I talk about maybe things I'm cooking, baking, stuff I'm reading, and then we wrap it up. So that's the general format of my episodes, and a big warm welcome to you. So let's get started. First off, usually I let you know what I am drinking today, and today in my mug I have an echinacea elderberry tea. It is hot. I don't know if it's ready to sip yet. Just right. So that is what I have in my mug. What are you drinking today, if you care to share? Let's see. Let's start with what I'm wearing. I finished this sweater, I think probably a year ago to the month. It is the Cordy sweater, or Cordy pullover, by Sachiko and Kiyomi Bergen. They are twin sisters who are Japanese-Canadian. It is from their Moon and Turtle book, and I love every pattern in that book. It's full of versatile yet bold patterns, as bold as you want to make them. And I just feel like it's a great staple for pullovers and socks, and I think there's hats in there. Yes, there's definitely hats, pullover, socks, and I can't remember what else. Cardigans. But I So I initially knit this sweater for myself, and then my gauge ended up being very off from the pattern, and it got really big. And it's partially because of the yarn. So this is Peace Fleece worsted, which I think knits up closer to Aran weight. It is very lightweight, even being a worsted or Aran weight yarn, and it is so delightful to knit with. It has these tweedy bits in it. And so then, by the time I finished or got closer to finishing, it was going to be my husband's size. So I just ended up knitting the sleeves to his arm length and the body to his torso length. And I gifted it to him, and he doesn't wear it because it's too warm. So he tends to run warm and I tend to run cold, so I took it back. That's the great thing about gifting for family. You know where their sweaters live and you can take it back if they don't wear it. Anyway, it is still for sharing, so if he wants to wear it, he can because it fits him. And on me, it is a delightful oversized sweater, which is when I finished it, I kind of figured that I could borrow it, you know, and wear it whenever I wanted to. And I have it worn over a linen dress that has these pockets here. And so okay, back up a little bit. So there's this little belt that I've had probably for like 20 plus years now, but Megan of Kimchi & Co on Instagram had found this video of someone who put like an elastic, like a large elastic around their waist, and then they tuck in their sweater, like, you know, like a French tuck or something like that to make it more versatile for wearing with sweaters or dresses. I mean, not sweaters and dresses. Well, you are wearing a sweater over a dress, but anyway. So some sweaters, if you don't knit cropped, they're longer, right? They might be way past hip bone, several inches past. And then when you wear it with a dress that might be A-lined or a circle skirt, it might just, the dimensions or the proportions, sorry, will maybe not be the way you want them to be. Let me move this chair so I can back up a little. So then if you create this like waistline using an elastic, or in my case here, a little belt, then you can tuck in the sweater to the length you want it to be. So since this is knit to my husband's torso, it is very long on me, so it actually can cover my butt. So I can actually wear it with leggings comfortably if I want to. And I do have leggings under my dress here because it's winter. But I have it closer to my natural waist, and then I have the sweater tucked into it and then folded out so that the hem still pokes through a little, but it's still like, I don't know what you call it, tucked out. But in any case, it is so cozy, it is so comfy, and it's the first time I'm wearing it like this. I have to say, I'm not sure how it would do with like a lot of movement. On here, it might be fine because I have so much fabric, so it's not going to be pulling it out. But with a sweater that might not be as long, I'm just not sure if I would be constantly like adjusting it. Especially, you know, my kids are a little bit older now, but if they were still like toddler baby stage, and I'm like picking them up, putting them down, picking them up, putting them down, and like constantly moving my arms up and down. Looks like I'm like trying to fly. I'm just not sure it would be super practical. However, that being said, if I'm just like sitting at a job, like a desk job, or I'm not doing a ton of movement, I feel like it could really work, right? It looks polished, it doesn't look frumpy, in my opinion. And it's just another way to wear longer sweaters over a dress that, you know, is like kind of a fun way to dress it up. Anyway, so that's the Cordy sweater, and I will link to it in the description box below this video, along with everything else that I talk about, like I had mentioned. This Peace Fleece is a blend that I wasn't as familiar with. I believe there's mohair in it, and is it Rambouillet? Something special. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. One second. I'm back. My memory served me correct. It's Navajo Rambouillet, Navajo domestic fine Rambouillet wool, and mohair, a 75-25 ratio for that. Yeah, it's really comfy actually. It's actually getting a little bit warm, but my husband finds it slightly on the scratchy side. But I think because if you run warm and then you wear something that's can be slightly prickly, I feel like it makes it extra prickly. Like if I'm warm and I'm wearing a sweater, I tend to feel the prickles more. But if I'm cold and I'm wearing the sweater, oh, it's so good. And you know, for being a worsted / Aran weight, I feel like this is so lightweight. I don't know, it's really, really comfortable. This might be woolen spun. I don't know anything about like woolen worsted spun, but I feel like it might be, okay, let me look it up. It says here, drafting method, woolen spun, 2-ply, fleece dyed. Yeah, something else cool is that it is milled, dyed, scoured, and sourced all in the United States. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And what else? I don't think there's much else to say. I just love this color work yoke. It is bold, and you can pick however many colors you want to make it more subtle or more graphic. And I used Antarctic White is this cream color. Morning Dove is this beautiful grayish lavender color. Chestnut is the brown. And the red is Sheplova Mushroom. And they all have Tweety bits in them. And they are slightly heathered as well. And it is just delightful. I can't tell you how it wears over time with a lot of wear because it hasn't been worn very much. So, but maybe the rest of this winter I will wear it more often, and I'll just take it back from my husband and say that he can borrow it whenever he wants. Okay, it is getting darker and darker, so hopefully the lighting is going to be okay. Let's get into the finished projects. I have a few. You know, there was a pair of socks I wanted to share with you, but I can't find them. So they were my husband's Christmas socks. I've been knitting him Christmas socks ever since I started knitting socks in August 2019. And he must have worn them recently, so I don't know where they are. But I loved them. I think I shared them as a work in progress previously. But anyway, we're just going to move on. I will share with you a hat that I knit for him. He wore a different one that I've knit him to work today. So this is the Great Gingham hat by Jessie May Designs. And it is such a fun pattern. I've had it in my Ravelry queue for a while, and this Pearl Soho Good Wool and Sport Weight is just the perfect yarn for this project. The yarn is 100% Andean wool. It is not superwash. It is 383 yards for 100 grams. And it is soft yet a little bit toothy for color work. And I have here Teal Twilight, which is this beautiful heathered teal color. And then this grayish brown. I think it's more gray than brown, but it's one of those that kind of shifts. And that one is an undyed wool called Walking Stick. And I just feel like the two together, it's so beautiful because this gingham pattern can look as graphic as you want it to be or more subtle. And my husband isn't somebody that likes to like super stand out at all. And I feel like this pattern, I just really want to knit this pattern because I think it's classic and it's fun. And so I just went with colors that are a little less contrasty, lower contrast. Not super low contrast because I don't like knitting low contrast color work. I feel like it's hard on my eyes, and I feel like if I'm going to do all this work to do color work, I want it to show. But yeah, I think this turned out really nice. I knit this size adult medium, and it's to fit a 23-inch head circumference, I believe. And then the needles I used are a US 4 for the ribbing, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and a US 6 for the color work section, which is a 4 millimeter, and I believe that's what's recommended in the pattern. And yeah, it turned out really well. The teal, I did do the double length of the ribbing for the brim so that he can fold it up and just kind of adjust sizing that way. He likes his beanies to fit fitted, to not be slouchy, to be fitted. And so I feel like just having that longer brim just helps him adjust it the way he wants to. But I think he probably would have been okay without it as well and just pull it over. I also wanted it to just have the double layer over the ears, but he rarely complains of cold ears. So I'll talk about that in another hat that I've cast on for him. But the crown decreases is what's really fun on this. I've never done it like this before, and in pattern it was a bit of a concentration project, I think. Not necessarily challenging, well, I mean a little challenging, but just different than what I've done before. So you have to be knitting in pattern while you're doing this decrease detail. And at one point near the end, I was getting kind of mixed up, so I just ended it. I think I only had a few more rounds to go, but instead of having it all messed up at the very end, I was like, okay, I'm done. So I think it worked out really well. It fits him very nicely, and the stranded color work inside gives it a double layer. I feel like my floats are super even. I didn't catch any floats. And I knit my stranded color work two-handed, and I just make sure my stitches are nicely stretched out on the right needle so that they don't get bunched up. And then my contrast color is in my left hand, being the dominant one. And I did not switch it between the two for the color work charts or anything. I just kept it the same. So the teal was always in my right hand, and the grayish brown was always in my left hand. And that's what worked for me. I believe there's a tubular cast on. I couldn't be bothered, so I just didn't do it. And I think it looks very nice. I think that's it to say for this one. Oh, how much yarn I used. I used less than what the pattern recommended. For the teal, the main color, I used I think 31 grams. And then for the contrast, I used about 18 grams. So I think if you have any sport weight or even light DK weight remaining from other projects, you might have enough to knit yourself a great gingham hat. Next finished project is the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. And this one I also knit out of a Purl Soho yarn. This is a new to me base called Quartz. And the quartz base is 65% non-superwash merino wool and 35% Surrey alpaca. It is so soft and so drapey, and it has a nice halo to it. The colors I used here are gray denim and lavender moon. The gray denim is like a bluish gray, and the lavender moon is a very pale lavender. And both have some semi-solid semi-solid qualities to it, so it's not super flat in color. There's a little bit of variation to it. And for the gray denim, I used about 50 grams, and for the lavender moon, I used about 56. I don't know what happened. They should be about the same, maybe a gram or two off, not 6 grams off from each other. I know I knit 2 rounds less of the gray denim, but that shouldn't have accounted for that much. It would have only accounted for like a gram. So maybe my tension changed at some point. I don't know. But I used US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles. If you are unfamiliar with the pattern, I'll just tell you briefly. It is a paid for pattern, so I won't go into detail, but it does have it written out for various gauges, so you can use different yarn weights, and then you decide which needle size to use. So I feel like that's the only part that could be a little tricky. So if you're like brand new to knitting, you're not sure like needle size and yarn weights, what goes well with what, I feel like that might be a little confusing, and you might have a little bit of trial and error in the beginning. But if you generally know, okay, I might want to use whatever needle size with whatever needle weight to get a fabric density that I like, then I think it's a great tool to, kind of tool in your toolkit of patterns. But yeah, so I used a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle with fingering weight yarn. I think some people use a US 2 or US 2.5, depending on their gauge and what they like. And I knit my tube extra long, so several inches more than the pattern states, because I like a big folded brim option. And also I have a lot of hair and I often wear it in a bun. So if I want to keep the bun up, I need the hat to be deeper to accommodate that. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. So the hat is knit in a big tube. You start from one end and then you go all the way to the other end. And you don't have to switch colors halfway through. I just like how that looks because then you get like a reversible hat. So here it is on with my bun on top. And then I can still fold it even with the bun in there, but I can fold it even deeper if the bun is not there. So my ear here is on the side. It is fully covered in double layers. If I don't have the bun in, I can even go a little bit higher, or I can wear it slightly slouchy. It is super comfortable. This one I knit slightly larger than my first one, just so it doesn't fit as tight over my head, and it is very comfortable. I like them both. they both work well. Sometimes I find it's hard to wear hats with glasses because, you know, my glasses stick out on the sides, and then what do you call these things on the side? Well, anyway, the parts on the sides of the glasses stick out, right? So you can never get the hat very flush with your face, so there's always wind kind of getting through, and that's kind of annoying. But I see there's this end trying to stick out here. Let me grab a crochet hook. I'll show you here. There's this little like end trying to stick out. If you hear that rumbling, those are the snow plows going through. It is supposedly snowing like 1 to 2 inches an hour, so yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna stick this crochet hook in. Because there's no wrong side facing, you kind of, if you have to fix anything, you have to go in carefully. And then I'm going to just, well, I can't do it showing you, so I'm not gonna even try flipping it over. Yeah, so I'm just gonna pull that thing through. So I stuck my crochet hook in and then just pulled on that little loop to loop it back inside. All right, all done. The loop is now gone, tucked back in. What else should I tell you about this? Oh, the cast on. So the cast on can be fiddly because you cast on from this tip, and the other end is, so one end you increase out for the crown, and the other side you decrease down for the crown. So it's like knitting a top down and a bottom up hat simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously. It's a top down and a bottom up hat in one hat. I don't know why I'm trying to say that. Anyway, I've tried a few of them, and what has worked for me is the crochet hook method. It's the crochet hook pinhole cast on, and I followed a tutorial by Very Pink Knits, and I think it worked out really well. The only tricky part is, do not use, well, I don't think you'll be able to use, don't use like a crochet hook with one of those ergonomic handles to it, because after you hook the things on, you're gonna have to slide those stitches down to the other end. So use something that is, well, this one has a little bit of a lump in the middle, but I didn't think it affected it that much. So I have these metal ones that don't have the ergonomic handle, so it's more the same throughout. Yes, there's a tiny bump here. I just don't make those stitches super tight, and I use a smaller hook. So like I'm using a US 3.25 millimeter needle. This is a 2.75 millimeter hook. And then so I just kind of use that to account for this little bump. So that would be my recommendation, is to make sure you don't use a crochet hook with like a chunky handle, because you won't get your stitches to go to the other end to then transfer to your knitting needles. But I did find that that tutorial to work for me. Otherwise, if you know your gauge for your needles and your yarn, you can do a provisional cast on and then knit one end and then knit the other end, and that way you can do decreases for the crowns on each side. And I've done that before too. It works really well, and then your two crowns are identical because you're doing decreases on both of the sides instead of increases on one side and decreases on the other side. I think they're pretty much the same anyway. It's not like you're wearing both sides out simultaneously, so you're not going to be comparing. But yeah, if you prefer to do it that way, I'd say you can do it that way. Just make sure you know your gauge ahead of time. The benefit of being able to cast on from one small end is that you measure your gauge as you start. So once you start and then you get to maybe a couple inches or an inch or so out, then it's easy to measure your gauge. And then you can decide per pattern how many rounds of increases to do to get to your desired stitch count for your desired circumference. So yeah, I think that is all I have to say for that one. Next finished project are the World's Simplest Mittens, which is a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. I love all patterns by Tin Can Knits. I feel like they are very clearly written with enough information for a beginner, but not overwhelmingly spelled out where you might get annoyed by all the extra information if you are a more experienced knitter. I have made several pairs of these mittens in the past, and it is my go-to mitten pattern. I knit these for myself because when it was super, super cold, like minus 37 wind chill Fahrenheit cold, I needed something that was very, very cozy. So I had some Rosaria Rosa Pomar yarn in, is it Mondim or Mondim? It's 100% Portuguese wool, non-superwash, and I had it in this speckly color. It's a light gray with speckles of like black, pink, and mint. And then I also had some mohair that's Lana Grossa, and it's a light pink color, very light pink. And so I held those together triple. So I have the fingering weight yarn held double and then added in the lace weight mohair. And it is so cozy and so soft. And I followed the pattern for adult small, I think. Yeah, I think I did the adult small and then for worsted weight. So the gauge of 20 stitches for 4 inches. And I think that's what these came out to be. Let me double check. I wanted it more on the denser side than I wanted it more dense than not, because I wanted it to block more wind. And so these came out to be, let's see, they look more like 4.5. 4.5 stitches per inch instead of 4 stitches per inch. Oh wait, no, I'm doing that wrong. If it's 20 stitches for 4 inches, then it should be 5 stitches per inch. And I came out to be 4.5 stitches per inch, which actually I think worked out in my favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 4.5 stitches per inch. Yeah, it kind of worked out because I was debating between an adult small and adult medium, and then since I was holding 2 fingering weights plus a mohair, and then using the needle sizes, a US 5 for the ribbing and a US 7 for the stockinette part, I was going to be kind of in between sizes, and these worked out perfect. They are so cozy. Hopefully you can see the halo on the top of that fabric. They are fuzzy. I will say that they don't get along well with Velcro. When I was helping the kids with their ice skates, they have Velcro across the front, and that did not go well, so I had to take off my mittens for that. But otherwise, I thought it worked out really well. I usually add an extra round or two in the part between the ribbing and starting the thumb gusset. I don't know if I just have like proportionally a longer part there, but I don't like the ribbing coming up to where the gusset should be. I think in the pattern there are a couple of rounds there, but I usually add in a few more. So I like my cuffs to be pretty long, because if you stick your arms out and you have a jacket on, I do not like it when the wind comes up and there's like exposed skin. In our area, there's high winds sometimes and very cold, low temperatures and wind chill. And so if there's exposed skin sometimes for just a few minutes, it can be dangerous. And so I just prefer it all covered, because why would I want, you know, cozy and then like freezing and then cozy? I just want it cozy the entire way. That's end of story. So these worked out really well for me. How much yarn did I end up using? I don't know if I wrote that down. Well, yes, I did. 55 grams of the fingering weight yarn and 14 grams of the mohair. So once again, if you have yarn remaining from other projects, I feel like mittens are a great way to play with that. And if you have just little bits, make them striped, make them scrappy looking, make them however way you want to, color block them, helical knit them. There's just so many options. And mittens are just such a fun palette. They work up quicker than socks, in my opinion. And there's just so many options. And the pattern, I think, is just, it's so well written for different sizes. I think you can do toddler up to adult, like a bigger adult. I don't know. I think there's 5 or 6 sizes. So I've knit several of these, maybe a dozen at this point. And it's a pattern that I just go to again and again and again. So these are my world's simplest mittens, and I have been wearing them every day since I finished them. I think I finished them on Christmas Eve. Yeah, I finished them on Christmas Eve. It took me over a day. You know, I didn't knit the entire time, but over 2 days, I guess. And I just love them. Last finished project to share with you. Are you ready? Oh, I love it so much. This is my half and half triangles wrap. It's a pattern by Purl Soho. I knit it in the linen quill by Purl Soho. The red is Red Poppy, and the deep fuchsia is Rhubarb Pink. and I just love these colors together. I feel like there's great synergy. They give off a vibrant, not only color, but energy. And then together, I feel like it just exudes like joy and positive energy, and I just love it. I cast it on September 1st of 2022, and I named it Purpose, Passion, Possibilities, to kind of go with the words that I was ruminating in my head with the start of a new school year and just different things that I was thinking about. This is my 5th one. I did kind of write out a little blurb on Instagram, just my thoughts and feelings about this pattern, and I know I've mentioned it multiple times in my 3 years. Well, okay, I haven't been making this for 3 years. I've been knitting this for over a year, this same pattern over and over again. But I have mentioned several times on my YouTube channel here that I like making the same things again and again. And if I don't, then I just won't do it. But if there's a pattern that speaks to me and I find multiple color combinations I would like to make it in, then I'll do it. And if you decide you don't like that, then don't do it. I feel like so many people feel like the pressure to make something because they think everyone else is doing it. And I'm putting it in air quotes because everybody else is not necessarily doing it. You might just see people doing it, and then maybe your feed is filled with people doing that because you click on that link or click on that picture, and so whatever the algorithm is thinks you want to see more of that, and so then you think everybody is making it, but it's not really true. So I particularly like this pattern. I like the 2-color version. There's a striped version out now too, which is like a updated pattern. I think it's even bigger than this because you cast on even more stitches. But I like the simplicity of the 2 colors because I don't have to think about color switching. I don't have to think about really anything other than what 2 colors do I want to put together in this piece. And because it's a long-term project for me, they usually take 4 months. And it's 4 skeins of yarn for me. And I will kind of recap my modifications for this and link to a video that I made on this YouTube channel with my modifications for anybody that is new here and hasn't seen that yet. But I just really like the versatility of this project. I'm going to stand back a little so I can hold it up for you to see. It's going to probably be bigger than what's going to fit in here, but most of it fits. So I modify the pattern very slightly. The pattern comes in big and bigger, and that's 190 stitch cast on or 260 stitch cast on. I have found that a 230 stitch cast on is perfect for me. I can actually aggressively block it out to the bigger size that is stated in the pattern, and so it still fits very comfortably. And I can just buy 2 skeins of each color and come in using about 200 grams per color. Now you might think, oh, that's cutting it really close. I don't know if I like to play that kind of yarn chicken, but I will say in general, the yarn that I've bought, it comes in like 103, 105, or even 107 grams. So when I finish, I usually have about 10 grams left of each color. So it works out for me. Now your gauge may vary, so don't be like running out of yarn and being like, you told me I could make it in only 4 skeins. It's different for everyone. And being a long-term project, sometimes my gauge may be tighter, sometimes it may be looser. And so the amount of yarn I might use may vary over that amount of time. So yeah, it works out for me. Then I only have to buy 2 skeins of each color because in the pattern, if you cast on the smallest size, you also just do 2 skeins of each color, but you don't use up as much yarn. And then for the bigger size, which is 260 stitch cast on, I found, so my first one, I did that one, and I bought 3 skeins of each color, because that's what the pattern says to do, and I only ended up using like 2.5 of each color. And so I figured, okay, well, it's not like I can't use the remaining yarn, because I do. I treat my yarn as like a paint palette. Whatever colors I have remaining, that's more colors to use. It's not like it's no use anymore, right? Like it's a color that's part of my palette. What was I saying? Oh, so if I cast on 230 stitches using the US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles as called for in pattern, I end up using, most of the 2 skeins per each color. And then I have a little bit remaining, which is perfect for other little projects that I can use it for. So this is my 5th one. And oh, on this one I slipped one stitch on the edge, and again I do have a tutorial for how I do that. And then I use German short rows for the short rows in the middle. The pattern calls for wrap and turns, and I just like German short rows. So if you are curious how I do that, I will link to that video either in one of the corners here on the screen or definitely in the description box below this video. So yeah, this is my half and half triangles wrap. And if you're curious for more pictures, you can check out my Instagram, and that's at edible.thoughts.makes. On to the works in progress. I think the first one I'm going to share with you is one that I cast on December 1st, so about a month ago. The yarns I am using are, surprise, surprise, Pearl Soho Linen Quill. If you are new here, the Linen Quill is my favorite fingering weight yarn currently. Things can always change. It is a non-superwash yarn that's 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. I have made it in sweaters held on its own. I have made the half and half triangles wrap, of course, with it. And I have held it double. Well, did I do it held double before this? Actually, I don't really remember. But the project I'm about to share with you is it held double. The top color here is raw sienna. It's kind of a golden brown color. And the bottom is fresh nutmeg. And the fresh nutmeg has a lot of variation in it. It's got some kind of reds and darker browns. They both have a slightly heathered appearance due to the fiber content and how dye is taken up differently between a plant fiber and an animal fiber. And I just love these two colors together. It's got a very rich, warm brown color, and I just love it. So Pearl Soho has sales periodically throughout the year. The Linen Quill goes on sale quite often either on its own or through like a sale of Pearl Soho goods. So there'll be, I think, 15% off or 25% off. And so earlier on, I think in 2022, anytime there was a sale, I would be, of course, tempted to grab some more colors because their line of Linen Quill, I don't remember how many colors they have, but they have a lot of colors. So it is there for anyone who likes cool colors, warm colors, neutrals, it's all there. And since I am making half and half triangles wraps with 2 skeins of each color, I just know how much I need to get, right? And then knowing that I can also knit a sweater, so if I want to knit a fingering weight sweater, these are 437 yards for 100 grams, and they usually come, like I mentioned earlier, anywhere from like 103 to 107 grams that I've gotten them. And so I can make a fingering weight tee very easily out of 2 skeins for my size. But if I want a marl, then I can use 2 of each and have 4 skeins and make like a DK or worsted weight sweater. So that is what I'm doing. I am almost done with my first skeins of each color here. And I'm just holding them double. And before I caked up the new yarn, I used some yarn left over from previous projects to knit a gauge swatch to kind of not necessarily get a feel for the marling effect, but a feel for the fabric density and what needle size I wanted to use. The way I do these holes on top, that is for the US needle size. I'll just do a yarn over and then knit 2 together. So this one I used a US 7 or a 4.5 millimeter. And the pattern that I am using as my like base or for stitch counts and things like that is the Coloring Book Raglan by Amy Sure. And I test knit this pattern for her earlier in 2022. Where's my brain going? 2022. And I think that was released in March, maybe March 2022. And it's a worsted weight pattern. And I get a gauge that's pretty close to pattern actually. I might be half a stitch off maybe in 4 inches. I don't know, but it's pretty close. I did go down 1 needle size because I liked the fabric density I was getting, so I'm using a US 7 instead of a US 8 per pattern. My initial one that I knit, I used Wool of the Andes from Knit Picks in worsted weight. So this marled fabric is so pretty. I love the depth of color and the coziness. I switched up the neckline, so I didn't do the twisted rib, and I knit it longer and then knit to my cast on edge and then continued on into the short row shaping that raises the back of the neck, and then I have gone through the raglan part for the top. I've split for the sleeves, and I'm working on the body section, and I just love it. It feels so nice, and it's going to be so cozy. Oh, so good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish those first 2 skeins of yarn that I'm holding together, and then I'll cake up the next 2, and then I think for this one, as far as yarn management goes, I'm going to finish the body to the length that I want it at, and then divide up those 2 cakes into 4 cakes so that I can knit my sleeves 2 at a time, which is what I prefer doing. I knit them 2 at a time on their own needles. So I'll either magic loop it or put them on like maybe 12-inch circulars. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I do have a tutorial, or not tutorial, but explanation video maybe on my thought process for how, like, I guess my needle management for knitting top-down sweaters. So I will link to that if you are curious for more information on how I do that. But yeah, so I think for this one, so sometimes I will finish off the body and then go to the sleeves. Other times I'll just go to the sleeves and then do the body later. For me, it depends on which one I am more set on. So if I'm more set on having like elbow length sleeves and I'm not sure how much yarn I'm going to have available, I'll do those first and then go back to the body. If I'm more set on having a certain length in the body, then I'll do that first and then go back to the sleeves. For this particular one, I don't think I'm going to have issues with not enough yarn, because I think either way I'm going to be okay with whatever length sleeve and whatever body length I'm going to go for. But yeah, so I just need to kind of sit down and figure out the math there. And what I mean by figuring out the math is, so I will knit around and then weigh my yarn before and after, so I know how much yarn 1 round takes. And I'll do that a few times, or I'll knit like 5 rounds and divide it by 5 to figure out how much it takes. Or I'll also look at my gauge and then figure out how many rounds for 1 inch, and then figure out how many grams it uses to knit 1 inch. And then from there I can guesstimate how much yarn I still need to knit to the body length that I want, and kind of go from there. I can also use those numbers to figure out my sleeves. So my gauge is going to be probably the same. For some people it might change, knitting on a small circumference, but I think these sleeves are not super tiny, so I don't think I'll have that issue. But I can divide the number of, well, I can figure out the grams. Is it stitch per gram, gram per stitch? I can't remember which way it goes. But, and then figure out from the pattern how many stitches are on the sleeve, and then from that I can figure out about how many grams I need for each sleeve for whatever length that I want. Does that make sense? Maybe that didn't make sense, but anyway, that's my thought process there for how I do my yarn management. And I don't particularly like having like extra. I know some people, I don't mind having leftover yarn. So like I mentioned, I always use my yarn that's remaining from other projects, but I like to maximize my yardage, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if I can use up all 4 skeins and be happy with the body length and the sleeve length, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to make it extra long if I don't want it long, but I will maximize my yardage to go with whatever fit I am looking for. Yeah, I think that sums it up. So yes, I'm very happy with how this project is going. I would love to have it done by the end of January, which I think I will. They're not going to be full-length sleeves. I think the body is going to be a full length, and I wanted it to have more of like a slip-over effect, because I do plan on using it as a layering piece and wearing like a thin long sleeve shirt underneath, or if I'm topping it over like a dress or something like that. The sleeves, I'm anticipating being either elbow length or a little bit past the elbow to be 3/4 lengths, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do tapered or not. The pattern itself has multiple views, so you can knit it cropped or you can knit it full length, and you can do the sleeves with no decreases to be past the elbow, or you can do it tapered to go all the way to the wrist. And there's stripes involved in the original pattern, but I think I'm just going to knit the entire thing marled with just these two colors, because that's what I have envisioned currently. We'll see what happens. The next time you see it, it may be close to finishing, if not finished. I guess it just depends on when I make it back here. Okay, I'm just checking my list here. I think the next project I am going to share with you is a hat that I am knitting for my husband. So this is a pattern you will have seen before. It's the Musselburgh hat by Zolda Teague, and I am using yarn from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It is from the 2022 December Sock Squad sock set, and this colorway is called 2 Medicine. It is the Highwood sock base, which is an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. It is a high twist, and actually one of my favorite bases for sock yarn. I have found it to be very durable, and yet very soft as well, and I really like it. But in this case, I am knitting it into a hat for my husband, and here is the start of it. I have just finished with the crown increase section, and I start that on using magic loop, and then once I finish that, then I switch to 16-inch circulars, and then I can just go round and round. I have a progress keeper on here that is a bronze snowflake, which is very appropriate for today and all the snow we're getting, and it has a bead on it, a very light blue bead. I believe it's Amazonite. And then I have these light bulb stitch markers, or really they're like safety pins on here, because I like to mark every 10 rounds, and that way if I decide to do a second color that's different, I can move those as I knit the second color, so that I have the same number of rounds. I haven't decided if I'm going to knit 2 color or 1 color yet. I think I might end up just doing 1 color. Here is the cake of yarn. It is this very pretty blue. I don't know how to describe it. Kind of turquoisey sky blue with very subtle speckling in it. The speckling is maybe a darker blue, but it's not super obvious. Yeah, so this is a project that is basically like the vanilla hat of a vanilla, or not of a vanilla sock, but the vanilla hat pattern to a vanilla sock pattern, maybe, for me anyway. So this is one that I will just keep in my bag, that as the kids have various things that I'm driving them to and that I'm waiting for, this is my on the go, waiting for whatever project. I don't think I mentioned any other specifics other than the yarn. I'm using a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle, and the size is an adult medium. The next work in progress I decided not to share because it uses the January 2023 Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad sock set, and for some people I feel like if they're international, they don't get their yarn maybe like by that first week sometimes of the month, so I'm actually going to hold off sharing that. And I just cast them on. They're a pair of socks. I just cast them on, so there's not a ton to show, and not that I don't want to show the yarn, I would love to show it, but then I can save it for next time. So the next project I'm going to share with you, I have in this beautiful little bag that I made. It has moons on it, and the background is starry, and it's navy. And I have one of my husband's old work shirts sewn for the drawstring channel there. So this is the start of my next half and half triangles wrap. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? So it's in the same yarn as my Musselburgh hat that I showed earlier. It is the Pearl Soho Quartz base, which is a blend of non-superwash merino and Surrey alpaca. And it is so drapey. This comes in at, shoot, where is my tag? Is the tag in here? Nope. It's 420 yards for 100 grams. And the linen quill is 437 yards for 100 grams. So very slight difference. I'm using the same needles, the US 3.25 millimeter needles, and I did my same modifications of for 230 stitch cast on, and we'll see at the end how much yarn I end up using per triangle, like per side. Here is the start, and I have it on a 47-inch cable needle. This is a Knit Picks needle, and I wasn't sure how the join would be, because I've found that with Knit Picks needles, sometimes the join is smooth and sometimes it isn't. I don't love how their cables aren't memory free, but knitting this large project flat, I don't feel like it bothers me as much. So this is the start. It is very soft and fuzzy, and I'm already really looking forward to wearing it around my neck and over my shoulders because it's going to be so soft and so drapey. This is the gray denim colorway, which is a bluish gray. It's got that heathery look. And then again, my second color is going to be Lavender Moon, that really pale lavender color. I have on here a Progress Keeper by Maria Woolen Forest. And it's this gourd. And it has a rose gold, what do you call that part? Bindings? I don't really remember, but I just love it. And so yeah, I'm using the same modifications I've done, although actually maybe this one I'm slipping 2 stitches on the edge instead of 1. I've done slipping 3 stitches, I've done slipping 2 stitches, and I've done slipping 1 stitch. Oh, yep, I'm slipping 2 stitches on this one. It just changes up how the edging looks. And if you don't want to slip any, you don't have to. The pattern has a garter edge, so there's no stitches slipped, so you just knit right up to the edge. Some people want to try out a different look, and so they do. So yeah, so this one I'm slipping 2. But this, again, is a long-term project for me. I'd love to have it done by the end of April. I cast this on New Year's Eve. And again, it's an arbitrary deadline, so if I finish it by then, great. If I don't, great. It doesn't matter. This is a project that I often work on when I'm waiting for the kids to go to sleep, to finally go to sleep. So yeah, this is an ongoing project that I just absolutely love. Last work in progress that I'm going to share with you today, and it is in this super cute bag that I love. If you are new here, I do not sell my project bags. I do not make tutorials for them. I do not even follow a pattern for them. I just make whatever I feel like making. Some fabrics are from just a local fabric store. Some of them are from Spoonflower. It's just a mix and match of different fabrics that I've collected, I suppose, over the years. But yeah, there's lots of different tutorials out there on YouTube and even probably at your library or your local fabric or sewing shop, so I would recommend looking there if you are interested. But yeah, so I love this fabric. There's like a pink orange floral, which goes great with these floral thermoses. Oh, I just love it. So oftentimes I will match my project to my project bag. This one is just the smaller one to my giant one. So the thermos fabric I got as a fat quarter, and so I just use it to make 2 matching bags. I like to make a smaller one, oftentimes for when the project starts out smaller, so it's more portable. And then I have this big tote one that I love to carry all the rest of the yarn that goes with the project. And then once the project gets bigger, then it just transfers just into this bigger one. But you might be curious, what's in this bag? It is a new project I have cast on, and it uses some new techniques. So it's the Academic Vest by Ellie of Skindeer Knits, and I am knitting it using Purl Soho's Good Wool. So I mentioned the Good Wool earlier. I just love it. It's my new favorite sport weight yarn, and the pattern is written for sport weight, so it works out well. It's an all-over colorwork vest. It starts from the bottom with lots of ribbing and then goes into colorwork. And get this, this is the part that I'm excited about. It's a new adventure for me. So you knit the entire thing in the round, including this top part, okay? You don't split for sleeves. There's this interesting construction where you just continue knitting this tube, but the shaping changes. And then you steek the armholes and the neckline. That'll be interesting. So maybe the neckline's not across, but down. Anyway, this will be an adventure. I'm really excited about it, and I am going to show you my colors right now because I took a long time trying to figure out what colors I wanted, and I finally decided, and I'm in love with it. I just love it so much. You want to see my swatch? Let me show you my swatch. Here we go. Oh, isn't it lovely? So pretty. So my colors are, this is Driftwood, is this light gray. Teal Twilight, which you saw in my husband's gray gingham hat, is this heathered deep teal. Fresh Guava is this like peachy orange color, pinky orange maybe. There, it's closer, now you can see better. This berry color is Fresh Loganberry, which you will have seen in my DRK Everyday sweater. And there's this very pale pink here that's called Pink Salt. So, my swatch came out a little looser in fabric than I wanted, and after looking at a lot of project pages on Ravelry, some people's projects came out too big, so I decided to go down a needle size. I did not swatch again, but go down a needle size and then choose a size in the pattern that's maybe one size bigger. Like if I'm in between sizing, I think I was between a size 3 and a 4, so I decided to go with a 4, and we'll see what happens, I guess. Let me get to my project page in my notebook here. Yeah, because the gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rows for 4 inches of the stranded colorwork. So yeah, I'm going down to US 5, which is 3.75 millimeter, and then her colorwork portion compared to the ribbing portion is 1 millimeter difference. So I'm doing all my ribbing on a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter, and it feels like it's taking forever, but I know it will be worth it, and there is no rush, there's no deadline, and hopefully I remember to talk about that later. I have I have something I want to talk about with deadlines and no rushing, so hopefully I remember to talk about that. But yeah, so I am really excited. The size 4 will be a 35-inch finished circumference, and that'll give me about 3 inches of positive ease, and the recommendation is 0 to 2 inches of positive ease. And so my hip circumference is 35 inches, and depending on where this ends up sitting, I think the ribbing is supposed to sit more at your natural waist. So I think it should fit well. I think it should be fine. And if it's slightly too big, then I can try to, like, I could slightly felt it in the dryer and have it shrink up just a little bit to just like cinch in a little bit. Otherwise, if I don't need to do that, then that's fine too. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. But I'm really excited about how it's turning out. I will show you my start of it. So again, here is the light gray, which is Driftwood. It's an undyed color. So this is the natural color. And this is what I got so far. Just a band of ribbing. And anything else? I don't think there's anything else. Oh, I guess I can show you the yarn colors in their cake form instead of a teeny tiny swatch. So that was my main color. Here is the Teal Twilight, which is a beautiful heathered deep teal. Here is Guava Earth. Oh, I just love this color. It's like a pinky orange, kind of terracotta-y color. And then here is Pink Salt, which is a pale pink, peachy pink, a pale peachy pink. So I feel like it complements well with the Guava Earth, which is also complementing well as a complementary color to the Teal Twilight. And then here's Fresh Loganberry, which is a great berry, jammy, plummy color that you will have seen in my sweater, the DRK Everyday sweater. And I think that's all the colors. It's a 5-color project, and I love it. I'm so excited to, well, I'm so excited to finish the ribbing so I can get to the fun part, which is the color work. So I feel like once I get past the ribbing part, the color work will go quickly because color work is kind of my jam. And yeah, then we'll get to the very exciting part of this interesting shaping and steeking. And I do plan on doing some needle felting because I have the needle felting needle thingy, and then it makes all of those little ends stick together better. It'll be my first time steeking a project, and I'm excited for it. So I've done a ton of talking. I hope you're doing okay and that you've split this into parts if you just don't want to watch anymore, and that's totally okay. We are in the Eats and Reads section now, and my battery for this camera looks like it's about to go out, so we will see how much I get through. There's not a ton of baking, if you've noticed in the vlog. Our oven broke, so it won't turn on. So we're in the midst of figuring out what to do with that situation. It's a bit of a bummer, but worse things can happen, so we're just dealing with it. Neither of my grandparents have ever had an oven. They live in Taiwan, so I can manage cooking without an oven. It'll be just fine. Yeah, so no baking for me. The books that I am reading currently, oh, actually, hold up, back up. So you will have heard me talk a lot about this duology. I think I talked about it last time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did because I had started the second book, Heart of the Sun Warrior. This is by Lynn Tan, and I was in love with it. So I'm not going to say a whole lot. I just want to say I finished it, I cried, I laughed, and it's so good. And now I have my own copy because I asked for it for Christmas, and my kids each got me one of each book. And well, I mean, I ordered it for them, and then we had them give it to me. But yeah, I'm so excited to have these 2 books now as part of my own personal collection of books, and I look forward to reading them again and again. Maybe I'll start reading them again on Lunar New Year. That would be fun, right? I think that's what I'm going to do. But yes, I'm not going to go a bunch into it. I just love it. If you are into retelling of Chinese mythology, into folklore, into like fantasy, romance, and there's like, there's, what would you call it? Like fiber talk in it? I don't know. Weaving and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff in here too. So I just love it. I love her storytelling and the way you get totally wrapped up in it. And it's like, you know, you gotta read one more page, you gotta read one more page. Ah, it's so good. So I love this duology, highly recommend. Daughter of the Moon Goddess is the first one, and then Heart of the Sun Warrior is the second one. The book that I am currently reading is by Amy Tan, and this is called Saving Fish from Drowning. It is an older book of hers. I'm trying to think when this was published. Let me see. 2005? Yeah, I think 2005. Which honestly in some ways does not seem like that long ago, but it actually is kind of a long time ago. But it is so good. Like I've mentioned before, but again, if you're new here, I never really quite know how to talk about books without giving things away or saying the wrong thing. So I generally just talk about the style of the writing and what I love about it or what I don't love about it. And yeah, that's usually what I say. But Amy Tan is one of my top favorite authors. I just really like how she's frank about about situations. Like, she just tells things as they are. She has a great sense of humor. I like how she describes things. It's not like overly detailed, but still to the point where you really get it, or at least I do. And yeah, I read The Bone Setter's Daughter earlier, and now I'm enjoying Saving Fish from Drowning, and it's really good. I could read you the back of the book, I guess, because that shouldn't give away that much, because that's what is on the back of the book that you might read. Or because my battery's running out, I'm not going to do that. So I recommend that you go look it up on Goodreads or something if you are interested in it. But I love how she builds up her characters. There are quite a few characters in this book, so I do get a little mixed up if I've put it down maybe for a couple nights. So I feel like I need to write it out, like on a post-it, and just stick it on the inside of the book or something, or on like scrap paper, so that I can keep track of who's who in case I forget. But yeah, I feel like sometimes there's only like a handful of main characters, but in this one, there's this group of people traveling together, and I want to say there's 12 of them. So it can get a little confusing. So for me, so I think I'm going to write that down. That'll be my next thing to do. So I think that is everything that's on my list of stuff that I wanted to talk about. There was one thing I was trying to remind myself to talk about earlier that now I have honestly forgotten because I didn't write it down. What was it? Oh, I remember. Okay, it had to do with deadlines and not having them, and arbitrary deadlines and things like that. So in the last several years, I have done a lot of test knitting. So if you're unfamiliar with test knitting, what it is you, well, not you, a designer will put out a test call asking for people to help critique and like test out their new pattern. And there's different, guidelines, different requirements that each designer might have for what they want you to get out of the test knit and what they want to get out of having you test knit for them. And everybody runs their formatting a little bit different. Some run it more like a mini knit along, others don't. And so it's just different depending on which designer you're testing for. But I've done a lot of them. They are generally unpaid. You provide your own yarn. You often will receive you'll receive the final pattern of whatever you're testing, and then sometimes they will give you like as a thank you, another pattern from whatever they have published already, or some of them do it slightly into the future, so for upcoming releases too, and things like that. So it just depends. Again, it's different per designer. Well, they take up a lot of time. And yes, I know it's voluntary, so I'm the one signing up for them. I'm the one saying that I like to do them. And I do. I do enjoy doing them. For me, it's kind of a way of giving back and just, yeah, being part of that community. But I do think this year, 2023, and I may eat my words later, but I plan on signing up for less of them because I have a long list of things that I want to make that are older patterns, and there's nothing wrong with knitting older patterns. I feel like it's silly to say that, but I think it can be easy to fall into feeling like you always want to knit that next exciting, shiny thing. And I don't exactly feel that way, but I feel like they can be distracting, I think, because I already have patterns in my queue that I want to make that I've either purchased or maybe they were thank you pattern from another designer that I still want to make, but I'm not going to get to them if I'm using time and energy towards testing, right? And there's just only so much time in a day, and we need to figure out how we can best use that time. And so there are things that I want to make with yarn that I already have designated for them, for the most part, not always, but and I, as you might know, like to make modifications. And with a test, you generally try to stay as close to the pattern as possible because that's what you're testing, right? And so if I want to change up gauge, if I want to change up whatever, I have much more freedom to do that on my own time, doing whatever I want. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm just going with it. And if some test comes up that I feel like I really, really want to do, I'll still apply. And if it works out, it works out. But I think also not having deadlines for me is totally fine. I'm not somebody that needs a deadline in order to finish a project. I can set my own deadlines. And again, they're arbitrary. So I think I generally function better under low pressure. Some people really thrive in high pressure situations. I don't. High pressure situations make me break out into hives. Not joking. And not that I've broken out into hives from any test knit. That hasn't happened. But it just takes more planning in that way. And yeah, I think I'm scaling that back. And I couldn't give you numbers on how many test knits I did in the last year or two, but I can tell you, let's see here, in total, I think I've done like probably close to 70 in the last several years, test knitting, like knitting and crochet. I haven't done as much crochet testing recently, but several years ago I did. And so yeah, I think I was getting close to like 70 of them. I think I'm scaling it back a little bit, just to make other things that I really, really want to make so they don't have to take a back seat. Yeah, so I think that is it for me here today, and hopefully all of this will be recorded before the battery dies, and we'll be okay. So cheers to being creative. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves and your family, your neighbors, your loved ones. If you are in severe weather, I hope you are safe. I'm looking out the window here and there's just snow blowing sideways. I'm sure there will be plenty of snow for me to shovel in a little bit. I don't want to do it quite yet because I'm just like envisioning in my head it like piling up behind me as I'm shoveling it out. So like more snow coming as I'm shoveling. So I think I'm going to wait a little bit and then go do that. But yeah, I'm going to have to be able to pick up the kids from school. So I might need to get on that sooner than later. But anyway, again, cheers, Happy New Year, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.